Let's talk about cannabis. It's a plant that, wow, really sparks some intense debate, right? On one hand, you've got people who see it as this miracle cure for just about everything. On the other, you've got people who think it's a dangerous drug that's going to ruin society. So what's the real story here? Today, we're going to try to cut through all that noise, look at the actual science, and separate the facts from the fiction.
Yeah, and this quote just nails it, doesn't it? It feels like the whole conversation is just these two extreme camps yelling at each other, and it leaves most of us stuck in the middle, just trying to figure out what's actually true and what's just hype.
All right, so to get to the bottom of this, here's our game plan. First, we're going to dive into the absolutely wild world of cannabis products out there today. Then, we'll unlock the incredible science of how this plant actually works with our bodies. After that, we'll look at the real, proven medical benefits, but also get real about the risks and the marketing nonsense. And finally, we'll talk about a path forward, how we can all think about this plant a little more clearly.
Okay, so first up, let's just take a look at the modern cannabis landscape. Because with legalization spreading, we've gone from this sort of hidden underground thing to this just massive explosion of products. And honestly, it can be completely overwhelming.
I mean, the options are just mind-boggling. It's not just about smoking anymore. You walk into a dispensary and you see vape pens, salted caramel edibles, THC-infused colas, super potent concentrates. And that's not even counting all the CBD stuff, like teas and skin creams. With this much out there, it's no wonder people are confused. Seriously, where do you even start?
So, to really get a handle on cannabis, it turns out we have to start by understanding ourselves. The real key isn't just in the plant. It's in a biological system inside our own bodies that honestly was a total mystery until pretty recently.
And this was the big question that had scientists scratching their heads for years. I mean, how can a single plant affect so many different things in the body? How can it touch our mood, our appetite, our memory, and our pain levels all at once? The answer, it turns out, is pretty incredible.
Well, the story kind of starts back in 1964. An Israeli chemist named Raphael Mechoulam, who, by the way, famously got his research cannabis from the police, was the first to isolate THC. But the real aha moment came decades later, in the 90s, when his team found something that just blew everyone away. Our bodies make their own versions of cannabis compounds. They'd found the body's internal lock that THC was basically the key for. So that lock is part of what's called the endocannabinoid system. Now, you can think of it like a master regulator for your body, this huge communication network that's always working to keep things in balance. It has a hand in almost everything. So here's the kicker. THC isn't some totally foreign substance. It's basically hijacking a system that's already there, and it works by mimicking the molecules our body naturally uses to manage itself.
So you might be wondering, what does it look like when this system is, naturally supercharged? Well, let me introduce you to Jo Cameron. She's a woman from Scotland who had major hip surgery, and afterwards she told her doctors she didn't need any painkillers. Turns out she's barely felt pain or anxiety her entire life.
And when scientists finally ran some tests, they were just floored. Her levels of this molecule, called anandamide, which some people call our body's natural bliss molecule, were 2.5 times higher than the average person's, the highest they had ever seen. I mean, her biology is this incredible window into just how powerful this system is for controlling things like pain and mood.
So finding this internal system really blew the doors wide open for therapeutic potential. Now that we know how it works, let's look at where the science actually backs up some of those big claims about relief. Okay, so where is the science actually solid? Well, there are a few key areas. For nerve pain, what they call neuropathic pain, one clinical trial found that a single puff of 9.4% THC cannabis 3 times a day made a huge difference in pain and sleep. It's also known to be incredibly effective for nausea, especially for chemo patients. And you know the famous munchies? That can literally be a lifesaver for patients who are wasting away. And finally, high-dose CBD is now one of the most proven, powerful treatments for some really severe forms of childhood epilepsy.
And this might be one of the most exciting areas of all, its potential role in fighting the opioid crisis. Check this out. In one study, researchers followed patients using cannabis for chronic pain for 6 months. Get this, a whopping 40% of them were able to stop taking opioids completely, and another 10% cut way back. That suggests cannabis could be a really important tool for harm reduction.
But beyond the numbers and the charts, the real-world impact on people is just profound. This quote from a cancer patient says it all.
For them, just being able to eat meant they could actually gain weight during chemo, which is almost unheard of. It wasn't just about feeling better. It was about having the strength to keep fighting.
Okay, but of course, it's not all a rosy picture. We absolutely have to balance all that promise with a really clear-eyed look at the risks. And let's be honest, the marketing hype that has just sprinted way, way ahead of the actual science.
One of the biggest fears you hear about is the link to psychosis. So let's break this down. Here's what we know for sure. There's a clear association. People with psychotic disorders tend to use cannabis more often. But, and this is a huge but, association is not the same thing as causation. We don't have proof that cannabis causes psychosis. It could be that other things, like someone's genes or trauma they experienced as a kid, make them more likely to develop psychosis and to use cannabis. The science here is just not settled yet.
And then there's the question of addiction. And the answer is yes, you can absolutely become dependent on cannabis. Now, it's not going to kill you like an opioid overdose, but cannabis use disorder is a real thing. And if you're a heavy user and you try to quit, you can go through some very real withdrawal. We're talking no appetite, terrible sleep, crazy nightmares, and just feeling super irritable and anxious. It's a powerful plant, and we have to respect its potential for dependence.
All right, let's talk about the CBD craze. I mean, it is everywhere, right? In your coffee, your face cream, your seltzer water, your dog treats. It's being sold as this magic wellness ingredient. But what happens when you actually look for the science behind all those claims?
Well, as one researcher put it, just so bluntly, the marketplace is far ahead from science. He says it's not even upsetting anymore that there's no science, because it's just marketing. The vast majority of those products you see on store shelves have little to no solid research backing them up. Right now, it's pretty much all hype.
So, where does all this leave us? We've looked at the good, the bad, and the seriously overhyped. The challenge now is to figure out, okay, how do we move forward? How do we build a smarter, more honest relationship with this really complex plant?
All right, so let's boil it all down. What are the big takeaways here? First, everything comes back to our body's own endocannabinoid system. That is the master key. Second, we know cannabis has some very real, life-changing benefits for certain conditions like nerve pain and epilepsy. But third, we have to be honest about the risks, especially for teenagers whose brains are still developing. And all of that points to one giant conclusion. We desperately need the science to catch up to the culture so that we can all have a healthier, more mindful relationship with this plant.
So in the end, the real path forward isn't about picking a side. It's not about Team Cure-All versus Team Snake Oil. It's about letting go of all those old ideas and ideologies we have baked into our brains. It's about moving forward with an open mind, demanding good science, and building a new, more honest picture of what this plant really is and what it really can and can't do.